We've been called out to this solar install because the customer is worried. The solar has just been completed, but there's a few alarm bells ringing. So in this video, I'm going to show you 5 common mistakes that many solar installers make. The one at the end, even we have been guilty of making in the past. Make sure you like and subscribe, and let's get into it. The first thing that rings alarm bells for me when I see this, a cable running up on the outside of the house. What does that mean? The inverter is probably in the loft. Let's head up there and have a look. So when doing these kind of investigations, I always like to start at the source of the energy, which is the consumer unit, and here it's in a small cupboard. Who would have guessed that it would be in a small cupboard? It just had to be, didn't it? Brace yourselves. So here's the old consumer unit. It's a pretty ancient one. It's called a Crabtree C50. I did do a fault find on a job with one of these the other day, and there were some shocking finds. So I'll leave a card up here if you want to view that video, right next to the Kellogg's All Bran. But the installers have not touched this consumer unit, which is good to know. They have installed their own new switch fuse down here, and this is where that outside cable is coming from. So the main switch with the main cutout fuse here for it, and they've run it off this Henley block. This is a little extra common mistake that people make with Henley blocks, is that they put them upside down. You see the writing's upside down there and the holes are in the top. That means it's not IP4X or IPXXB rated, which it should be. It should really be flipped the other way so that the holes come in the bottom, and then the horizontal top surface does not have the opportunity to get water or dust going in it. But yeah, just a small thing, not a big deal. There is main bonding to the gas, which is good, although they've put it in the wrong place, but that was probably original. The solar installers haven't touched that either. So this is the switch fuse. Now my first question is, what size fuse have they put in that? We'll take a look. So yeah, there's a 40 amp main fuse in there, which is fine because it's a 6mm EV Ultra cable that they've run in. They've run in EV Ultra because of this. This is a CT cable, which goes to this CT or current transformer, and that measures the amount of current that's coming in and out of the house, basically, so that the app will be able to detect what's going on in the house. That's absolutely fine, and it just helps with charge and discharge of the batteries. So let's follow this cable up and see where it ends up in the loft. So it's a nice spacious loft, and it's all boarded out. It's even got a little flimsy light up here, so can't complain too much. Let's have a look at all this gubbins. So we've got here a Solar Edge inverter, which is nice. We at Artisan love Solar Edge systems, and to be fair, the whole install looks to have been done pretty neatly. Like, I'm quite impressed with how they've clipped the cables neatly. They've laid everything out around this trunking with their nice couplers. Everything's, you know, pretty neat and smart, so that's a good sign. If you're looking for a solar installer, what I would suggest is look on their social media and see if they're proud of their work, and if they post pictures of neat installs, then that's usually a good indication. Doesn't necessarily always mean for sure that they're a good installer, but it's a good indication. There are a couple of little things that are not great, like there's no end caps on the trunking, but at a glance, okay, yeah, that's loose. It's not great, but you know, at a glance it doesn't look too bad. Now let me know in the comments if you can see anything immediately wrong with this. There's a few things that I can see that do worry me, and the first one is we've got an inverter and batteries in a loft. We should have a smoke alarm. There is no smoke alarm in this loft, and considering this was only installed a month ago, you know, the regulations do say that you must have a smoke alarm in a loft if you're putting an inverter up there. So that's a definite no-no, and to be honest, we at Artisan, we never install inverters and batteries in lofts because it just feels wrong. Like, you know, you've got all of this stuff that's generating a lot of electricity that's potentially flammable, although, you know, the batteries are built solidly, you know, they're pretty safe, but still doesn't feel ideal to have it in a loft. But also, there's an elderly couple in this house. Are they really going to clamber up and down that loft ladder regularly to come and, you know, just check and make sure everything's working okay? I mean, even for me as an electrician, I want equipment to be easily accessible, and what could easily happen is someone fills this loft up with stuff and it's very difficult to get to all this equipment. So personally, I would say try to avoid fitting inverters and batteries in lofts where possible, but if you do, you definitely should be installing a smoke alarm. Now the second thing I can see that's glaringly obvious here is that this is a plastic consumer unit, and I thought we stopped fitting plastic consumer units quite a while ago. The regulations changed quite a few years ago now. Let me know if you remember what year it was, but I think it was the 17th edition of the wiring regulations, or at least like amendment 1 or 2 of the 17th edition, which stated that consumer units should be made of a non-combustible material, i.e. metal. The reason being, loose connections can happen, and then arcing and sparking can happen. A plastic consumer unit can melt, catch fire, whereas a metal consumer unit will not melt and it will contain the fire. That is a general rule for domestic properties, and I think it still applies even if it's in a loft. So for me, it's a big no-no fitting a plastic consumer unit. Now the other thing I can see that is an easy mistake to make is labelling. There's a lot of labels here which are good. So the solar PV labels on the inverters, the isolators, etc. are all there. However, they have not put any battery labels in, and that's something that we got picked up on our MCS assessment, where they said that if you're fitting batteries you should have battery warning labels. So that's something that's missing. And also the labelling on the DC cables here as they go around the loft, there is no labelling on those cables. They could easily be mistaken for TV cables, for example, because they are black round cables. Somebody could easily think, oh, it's a TV cable, cut it, and of course there's high voltage DC there which will be live during daylight. So a little label should be attached to these cables every so often, saying that either to the cables themselves or next to the cables, so you know exactly what they're doing. Now the other issue is with the roof itself. So let's get up on the drone and have a quick look at the roof, and we'll talk about the roof penetrations as well, because there's something interesting to talk about there. So from the drone footage we can see that the install looks fairly neat on the roof. They've used bird blocker around to stop the birds getting in, and there's nothing glaringly obvious wrong with the way that they've done things on the outside of the roof. However, if you look a little bit closer on the inside of the roof, there is a common mistake here. So you see how they've run the DC cables through the flap here between the felt? That's good. So they've not just whacked a hole straight through this felt, because obviously that's a waterproof membrane, although to be fair it's pretty old and crumbly. However, when they've gone under the roof tiles, they've literally just run the DC cables straight through between the roof tiles. I can see big gaps there where wasps and bees and things could easily get in, and also the DC cables are literally just rubbing against the tiles. So over time what will happen is they'll vibrate and the insulation of the DC cables could rub off, and eventually it could cause some shorting or arcing. There's a really great example of that over here. So you can see here, that's where DC cables go through. Essentially they're just running straight under the roof tiles in the corner there. That's not great. If I take the light away you can see like a massive gap there where insects and birds could get in, and also the DC cables just rubbing against the roof tiles, which will wear out over time. And also here where they've done it, it's just ripped the felt, so the felt's all falling through. So again, it's a potential for water to get into the loft. You can already see quite a bit of debris that's fallen down there, and there's another example of that over here to the left as well. So again, over there you can see they've just gone straight through and the felt has all ripped. Now to be fair, it's such an easy mistake to make because this is so fragile. With the particular age of the property here, this is probably 50 or 60 years old, and it just gets so crumbly and brittle. So I'm not having a go at anyone who did it. I mean, it could easily have been us. But what I would do is install a deck type roof flashing, which is a proper roof flashing that has rubber seals around where the DC cables come through the roof tiles. That's a proper MCS approved roof flashing, and what it means is that there's no chance of the DC cables rubbing on roof tiles and wearing away the insulation over time. And there's one final mistake that has been made here, and it's one that we've even been guilty of in the past. It's quite easy to make. Let me show you. It's back at the inverter. So for our eagle-eyed viewers, you might have already figured it out, but the issue here is to do with a non-compliance when it comes to the manufacturer's instructions. Now this solar edge inverter, the manufacturer's instructions state that there should be a certain space around it, and obviously it's been installed really close to this Give Energy battery inverter. A bit too close, in fact. I think the rule is about 200 mil around 20 centimeters. Well, that's definitely not. And in fact, the customer noticed this, and this is one of the first things that rung alarm bells for him, is he went in to try and scan the QR code for his inverter and he couldn't get it. So So he had to contact SolarEdge and say, can you send me the QR code for my inverter please? And they said, well, if you can't see it, then it's probably too close to something else. And that's when he realised that the installation here was not compliant with the manufacturer's instructions. And let's face it, we've all been in that situation where it's tight for space, you're restricted, you've got to cram things in, and sometimes you end up fitting stuff a little bit too close to each other. However, in this case, there's actually plenty of room. So these two devices could go another 100 mil each that way, or this could just move 200 mil across, and you still have plenty of room. So it's a bit of a fundamental faux pas here that would have been easy to fix at the start, but now the original installers are going to have to come back and rectify that. However, overall, I'd say that these are all easy mistakes to make, mistakes that a lot of solar installers don't even realise they're making. We are fortunate because of our social media following that a lot of information flows through to us about things, about mistakes that we've made ourselves sometimes that we get picked up on in the comments section, or mistakes that other people have made that customers send in pictures to us, etc. And we learn and we try and improve our installs every single time. So I'm not slagging off whoever did this, because I think overall it's quite a neat install. There's just a few little fundamental mistakes, and for me the biggest one is the lack of smoke alarm in here, because I think that's the biggest potential safety issue. But other than that, it's a nice neat install. Whoever did it clearly cared about their work, the way that they've clipped the cables and laid everything out, and hopefully they'll correct these few little errors. The customer is happy that we've been here just to reaffirm his feeling about the situation. We'll send him a written report so that he's got a bit of information that he can have a bit of backup with regulations noted, etc. And then hopefully the original installer will come back and put things right. Now, in terms of installing a smoke alarm in the loft, it's actually a super easy job. They could wire it off this pendant light here, or there's even a loft light already up in the loft they might be able to come off of. What I would probably do is install a mains powered smoke alarm here and then interlink it with the one up in the loft, so that if the loft one did go off, you're going to hear it here next to all the bedrooms and you can make a swift exit. But small and easy job, easy to correct, but an easy mistake that a lot of people might miss. So I hope you've enjoyed this 5 easy mistakes that a lot of solar installers make. If you have, make sure you like and subscribe. Why not share it out with somebody else who might find it interesting? And if you enjoyed this video, you probably will enjoy this one here, where we show ourselves installing solar on a tennis court, or this one here where we install a load of solar panels on a garage. But either way, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.